Atina Mccrary Pegram was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon. Her family moved to Maryland when she was 12 until she started her undergraduate studies in TV broadcasting at OSU, which propelled her into a career in news, where she reported in Oklahoma and Amarillo for many years. A change in career led her to Dallas, where she had her first Bikram yoga class in 1999. Atina immediately fell in love with the benefits and practiced every single day until she went to Bikram's teacher training in September of 2001, less than 2 weeks after the 9/11 attacks. Atina has served Dallas with Bikram yoga since 2001, teaching literally thousands of classes and held space for thousands of practitioners. Atina is the longest standing Bikram yoga teacher in Dallas, and her cult following at Pure Yoga Dallas proves it. Welcome, Atina. Welcome, Atina.
Thank you.
I'm Lane. Thank you so much for joining us for Pure Yoga Talk. Atina, we want to start where you were born. Beirut, Lebanon. You were
Yes.
born in Beirut.
I was born in Beirut.
And you were there till you were 12. Tell us about that.
Yeah,
Is that right?
so I was born in Beirut back in the day. I won't tell you how old I am. And I was actually adopted there. So my parents were living in Beirut, working at the American University of Beirut, AUB is what it was called, and I was left in the hospital at the university, and I was 10 days old, and I was getting ready to be taken to an orphanage because my maternal parents left me there, and my parents were at a cocktail party, and they were talking about, there's a baby been left in the hospital. Anybody interested? Like I was an ad in a paper. Just kidding. It wasn't like that. But anyway, my parents were like, yeah, we'll go look. And so we'll go look at her. And they went to the hospital and they said, yeah, we'll adopt her. And so my parents are from Oklahoma, small towns in Oklahoma, Watonga, Kingfisher, Oklahoma, tiny, tiny towns. And they did it. So I have an older sister and older brother who are their biological children. And then I was adopted at 10 days old.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So how long were they there, at the stint that they were there, before you were adopted by them, and then y'all stayed another 12 years?
Honestly, I think they moved there in 56. So my parents lived there for about 25 years, evacuating several different times during wartime in Beirut. So we evacuated in 67, they evacuated in 50-something, and then the last time we evacuated is when I was in elementary school, and that was in 76, during the 77 war. And we left then and moved to Saudi Arabia and lived there for a while my dad was looking for another job in the States. So my parents had always lived overseas, lived in Ethiopia and then Beirut, and then we ended up outside of DC in Maryland, in Potomac, Maryland, is where I went to junior high and high school.
Wow. So are your parents in education?
My dad, yeah, he was an educator. He was an ag engineer. So he was the dean of agriculture at that American University of Beirut. And then he went to the World Bank and the United Nations is who he ended up working with. So in DC, it was with the World Bank. And he was always an ag guy and would just he traveled a lot. And, but always back to the Middle East. We always went back to the Middle East. That was his passion. So
What was that like growing up there? Your memories?
Beautiful. Yeah. I wish I could go back and take my kids because it's was a beautiful place. And they try to rebuild all the time, but war is happening all the time over there. So, but back then they used to call it the Paris of the Middle East. And everybody would come to Beirut because you could swim and ski all in the same day.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing. Beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful people, lovely people. The best people, quite honestly.
Culturally, what do you think you gained from growing up there for 12 years, like the first 12 years of your life?
I think I have a more, a broader outlook. How do I say this? I have more tolerance, I think, of people, of all people, of every nation, of every background. I mean, when we were there, we were Americans, right? So we had an American community. We all hung out with Americans. But you're living in a city with people from all over the world, not only Lebanese, but like Europeans and everybody. And everybody's just people. No one's looking at people as anything else, as just your demographic or whatever. I don't know. I just think I have a really open heart to different cultures. And I love that. And I think that's maybe who I am.
Beautiful. And of all of your immediate family, so you're the only one from like the heart of Beirut.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's your land.
Yeah.
So it's like
they're
the
all from
soul of that
Oklahoma.
place is like
Truth.
where you came
Although
from.
my brother and my sister consider, I mean, they both they all graduated from elementary to high school in Beirut. So that's home for them too. Like when we evacuated, the plan was always to go back. The plan was never to come back to the States. And my plan, you know, you make plans when you're young. And I'm like, well, my kids are going to grow up there too, where I'm never going to live in the States. We're going to live overseas and they're going to be so world traveled and everything. Well, we live in Dallas, but that's fine. I love Dallas. But yeah, it's just how it works out. All good.
Wow, it's so
No mistakes.
beautiful to learn that. Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, so you started there. How the heck did we end up here? Okay, so you ended up here. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm doing this. Okay, so you were 12. You moved back to the States.
Yes.
Or not back, for the first time for you.
Yeah, first time ever living in the States. And we lived in Potomac, Maryland, right outside of D.C. My dad worked in D.C. and then traveled a lot. Like I said, he was probably gone 6 months out of the year traveling. So it's just me and my mom because my siblings are 16 and 13 years older. So I was kind of raised as an only child. And I went to school there, graduated there, and then went back to Oklahoma. My parents are from Oklahoma, went back to Oklahoma. My dad died when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
And I always thought my mom wanted to go back and be with her family and, you know, reconnect and all those different things that you do because she'd been away since she was in college. She'd never lived back in Oklahoma. And so I applied to go to school there, went to school, and she's like, why are you going to Oklahoma State? I was like, I thought you would want to go home. And she was like, no. Anyway, but we did, and she ended up following me, of course. She moved back to Oklahoma my junior year at Oklahoma State. So,
What did you study?
broadcast journalism.
Ah, okay, so that's how you got into like film.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
okay, so tell me about
Not
that
so
time.
much film, just
Okay.
TV.
Just TV.
Just TV,
Just
yeah,
TV.
not film.
Right.
So my major was broadcast journalism. So, you know, you do internships while you're in college, and I worked at several TV stations in Oklahoma City, which is like an hour from Stillwater where I went to school. And then my first real TV job was in Amarillo, Texas. And I worked there in the Panhandle, like so crazy. Anyway, so I lived there for 3.5 years. I was only in TV for 7 or 8 years.
What were you, a reporter?
Mm-hmm.
You
I was
were
a reporter.
reporting?
I was
What
a
were you
reporter.
reporting?
I was just general news.
Yeah?
Just general, and I did courts and cops too. So courts and cops is always fun. But I
Give us your best. This is Atina tuning in. Please, we want to
What's
see
so
it.
funny
I wish it was on YouTube.
I know we've actually looked for it. I can't find
Oh, come on,
anything.
do it for our
I
viewers.
could probably not do it. But the thing is, the TV business is really interesting. So I did the morning show, which go figure, I do the
Ooh.
morning show here too.
Makes
Boom,
sense.
yeah. So I always did the morning show, and so I did like a interview segment and the news. So I would get to work at 3:45 and then work. In Amarillo, you work all day. You work until this 5 o'clock news. So I would be there from 4 in the morning until the 5 o'clock news or 6 o'clock news ended. So I do the show, write the show, produce the show, everything the show, and then go and report all day, and then have a story for the late show, and then go home and start all over again. It's a really hard job.
Wow.
It's a real, or back in the day, it was a really hard job. I don't know if it's so hard now, but it's really was
So
a
you're
hard
writing,
job.
producing, and the person
And
delivering.
editing,
yeah.
everything.
I didn't realize that was all. Well, they
Small
probably do
market-
it different now, but
yeah, small market TV.
You did it all.
Yeah, you
That's
did it all.
cool.
And that's kind of
Wow.
how you get your badge of honor, right? You know, people who just like get their breaks were always kind of like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you worked hard, they were like, you really know how to do everything, so you're more marketable, right? You
Yeah.
can get more jobs. Anyway, news is hard on your brain and on your heart. It really, really is. And so I was like, I didn't know if I was really cut out for it. I could do the morning show all day long. Like I could have been Oprah. I would have loved to have been Oprah.
Oh,
right?
you would have been. You are the best. You're the Bikram yoga Oprah.
I would have loved to have had her job, but doing the news part is really kind of sad and depressing. And so I was like, I don't know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. You know, you're waiting, truly waiting for something terrible to happen to somebody else to get your break. And that's what you're doing. And when I left Oklahoma City, the crazy part of me at that point, the news person, the bombing, Oklahoma City bombing had just happened, and I was in Amarillo, and I was like, that could have been my break. That's sick. I think it's sick. That all this tragedy is happening. I'm like, that guy could have been in New York, or, you know.
Yeah, your face, that means your story would be publicized.
Right. Then you get a better job, bigger job, whatever.
Yeah,
so
right.
It wasn't what my heart was cut out for.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
What made you go into that profession? Or
If I really think about the truth, it's because everybody said I should do that. Not that I really wanted to do that. That I was told like, oh, you've got a great voice. You sound like this, and you should do this, and da da da. And so I was like, oh, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I did it. I think a lot of kids do that.
Yeah.
They get influenced by what their parents think they should do, and you do it. So.
Well, so how did you? What was next? How did you get out of that?
next?
Yeah. What? So you were doing that.
Jack of all trades,
Yeah,
right? So then I
yes,
went to
love it.
retail.
Okay.
So I worked in retail here. I moved to Dallas, started working in retail, and
What brought you here to Dallas?
I was just left news. I just left and said I wanted to move to Dallas. So I was in Amarillo. Dallas was like a natural migration in my brain.
Nice, because it was like kind of a big city close by.
Yeah, Oklahoma City
Yeah.
is a big Amarillo, and Dallas is a big Oklahoma City.
Okay.
They're kind of like all the same city, just in different sizes.
love
It's kind
it.
of
That's
weird,
so
right?
funny.
So anyway, I moved here, did retail, and what got me here to yoga was I truly had an anxiety attack and was feeling like I was having a heart attack. Several times I was like having like really bad anxiety and never really knowing why I was having anxiety. And I was working at the Gucci store. I was the manager of Gucci at Galleria.
Nice.
And I said to my staff, I said, I think I'm having a heart attack, so I'm gonna leave. And they were like, where are you going?
idea.
I said, I'm going to the hospital. I said, I'll be back, but I'll be back. And they're like, okay. And so I drove myself to Medical City and said, I'm having a heart attack. And they were like, well, sit down. And I was like, don't think I need to sit down. They were like, well, sit down. Took me back, did the whole thing, right? And they were like, it's anxiety. And I'm like, what? And they were like, are things going on with you? What's happening? And I mean, crazy. There was lots of things that I hadn't even really processed. My friend had just died in a plane crash. There was, I don't even know if you guys remember, or you remember, there was the basketball team at Oklahoma State was flying home from Colorado and it crashed, the plane crashed, and my friend was, the reporter I worked with in Oklahoma City was on that plane. So I was like that, and there were several other things that were going on, and that was my anxiety. And so my friend's parents said to me, I'm gonna take you to yoga. And I was like,
Your friends' parents, who are these friends? they can't be somewhat like normal people.
They would not, I would have never have thought them as yogis in my life.
Yeah. How old were you at this point?
I was 35.
Nice.
I think it was about 35. And the Mosses are their names. They said, come to yoga with us after church on Sunday. And I was like, okay. I said, I'll go, because I was having all this like anxiety. But I didn't know what I was coming to. They didn't tell me I was going to hot yoga. They didn't tell me anything like that.
Oh, come to yoga.
Yeah, come to yoga. And so I wore like some really nice Banana Republics, you know, like men's pajama bottoms and a crop top. And I walked in, and literally the teacher goes, you'll want to cut those off. And I was like, why? She said, you're going to want to cut them off. And I said, okay. So I went into class. I was like, what is happening in here? It was so hot. I had no idea. I was clueless. And I did the class. Well, I tried to do the class. I was dying. And I crawled out of that class. The studio was on the other side of this shopping center. And it was tiny, tiny studio. And I literally crawled out and like said, how much is it for a month? She's like, whatever it was. And I was like, sign me up. And I mean, and I went every single day until I went to training.
What? So you were dying, you crawled out, but you still wanted more. Why?
Because I felt so good. I felt like my brain like shifted, like something, I wasn't even really doing the yoga. I wasn't really doing anything correct or right, or I was dying, I was thirsty. I ate a bean burrito on the way to class. I was almost gonna throw up at Taco Bell right down there.
That's impressive, Atina. Wow.
That wasn't impressive at all. And, but I signed up and I like absolutely loved it. She had just been open for a few months. And so I was one of the first students at that studio. And I watched that studio blow up. Like when I first started coming, Sunday was always my first day, the first class of the week. I always started on Sunday, 4 p.m. And there was like 10 students the first Sunday. The second Sunday literally was like 20. And then there was 30. And then there was 40. I'm talking the studio was tiny. We were smushed in there.
Wow, what year was this?
This would have been 99.
Wow. So it was, that's right at the beginning.
The beginning. It was
like yoga
nuts.
was still a bit taboo.
Yeah, it was. It was like, oh, you're a cult, you're, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it caught on so quickly. I mean, the word of mouth was just, it just went everywhere. It was crazy. So one day I came and I would, show up like 30 minutes before class started, because you really had to get in there early to get a spot, because she was turning people away. I came one morning or one afternoon that Sunday, and the line was down the stairway.
No way.
And she was like, I'm done, we're full. And people were leaving. It was nuts.
That makes me so happy.
It was the best. I mean, she was such a fantastic, she really.
Who is this?
Her name is Denise Deniger, is how you say it, I think, Deniger.
So she started that studio. She started Dallas Bikram Yoga?
It was, I think it was called Bikram Yoga College of India. That's what they all had to be called back then.
I still see that around.
Yeah. So Bikram Yoga College of India, Dallas or whatever. Yeah. And everyone just called it Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot of words.
A lot of words.
Mockingbird words. And Denise she was a force. There was 7 of us who went to training from her class from that first year. Not that first year, it was like, we went in 2001. But I think we were her first group that went from her studio. And there were 7 of us. And so back then, we didn't use yoga mats. Do you know this story?
Oh my God, I can't wait to hear it.
So Denise told us that in Bikram, you use a crib mat.
Of course.
And I was like, what is a crib? We were like, I was at, what's it called? Like that baby store. I can't even think what it's called right now.
Bye Bye Baby.
Like something like that. Yeah, or baby superstore, something like that. And I was like, I need a crib mat. She actually ended up selling them at the studio, but it was like this little weird thing you put in the baby crib that doesn't fit your body, but that's what we used.
Were yoga mats for sale?
Yes.
Like at the store, but she was like, buy this baby mat.
This is what you should wear. This is what you should use.
How funny.
So we all, the 7 of us, go to Bikram yoga training with crib mats.
Yeah, because you guys know what's up.
We know what's up. We were the only people with crib mats.
They're like, who are you guys? What the?
We got rid of
heard of a yoga mat?
We were like
so
such
funny.
Weirdos. Anyway, so we all went, and that's when training was in LA at his studio, at Bikram Studio. And
so it used to be not at like the Radisson or.
Right. So that, I think I was there 2001, fall 2001.
So this was how many had he done at that point?
I think he started like maybe 97.
So 3 years of training.
I could be wrong, but wow. Yeah, we were a pretty early class. We had 500 plus people in our class.
Whoa, how did y'all do that at one studio?
It was massive.
It was a huge studio.
Oh, his studio's massive. It had all those kind of like conference room like barricades that you would open up to make it one huge room. You could cut it off into different rooms.
Wow.
So it was all the way open, and it was packed. I mean, front to back, corner to corner.
People from all over?
All over the world.
Wow.
All over. Lots of Australians, lots of Europeans, lots of Scandinavians. Like from everywhere.
I'm goosebumps. This is, wow.
What's even stranger about that whole thing was 9/11 had just happened. So 9/11 happened on 9/11, and training started on 9/20.
No way.
So they had canceled training after the World Trade Centers, saying we're not going to do it. Excuse me. Sorry. Because of what happened. And then like maybe a week before training started, they were like, it's on. And so, scariest time in the world to leave your comfort of home and to go to California to do this yoga training that you have no idea what you're getting into. The world is not at peace. I mean, it was the craziest time. And so I went very fearful. And I went with my intention was never to ask anybody about training. So I didn't ask Denise about what training was like. I didn't want to know anything about it. I wanted to have my own experience. So
Did you have dialogue before?
That's a new thing. Or well, I shouldn't say new because this has been 20-something years, right?
But still, we want to know.
But there was no dialogue. Like they give dialogues now before so you can practice. We got them the day we showed up. And then we had to learn it pretty quickly. I mean, we were doing spine twist the last day before graduation. Like people finish way before now from what I understand. I mean, literally, we were graduating that afternoon and we were doing our dialogue for spine twist that morning.
Wow.
Because we were learning on the fly. It was so fast. And so...
well, hey, they got it done.
We got it done.
9 weeks?
Got it done. That was the best 9 weeks ever.
Tell me.
So we get there. So 9/11 happened. We're in training. They're telling us at training, have a plan to get out of the city because we don't know what's happening. We were so isolated. Like I didn't listen to the news. I didn't listen to anything because I didn't want to be... I wanted just to have the experience of being at the Bikram Yoga College of India. But my boyfriend, who is my husband now, would call and say, oh my gosh, there's this thing called anthrax. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, don't touch any mail. Like there was all this panic about all these,
I remember
all
that.
the unknown, right? I had power bars in my backpack, those terrible old school, like, you know what I'm talking about? Caramel, the worst. Had them in a go backpack. We all had go backpacks. So if they said go, we were walking out of LA. Where are we walking to? Like literally, where are we walking to? We were all like, okay, whatever, let's have a go plan. Because it was so, everything was so unsettled. And almost every single yoga practice, almost for the first couple of weeks, somebody from New York would dedicate that class to someone they had lost in 9/11. So it was a very emotional training. It was, I think we were a very close class because of that. We were very bonded and we were together because the unknown was just so, it was scary. I will say it was scary. But there was also this really great piece in this room where you were doing yoga that was so great.
Mm-hmm. Wow, beautiful.
So it was this kind of like mixed emotion at all times, you know?
Gosh, and even internationally speaking, having all these people come in such like a crazy time, that must have been hard for everybody, you know? Like just taking that kind of step.
You're so right, it was.
Wow, it must have bonded.
Leap of faith, right?
Yeah. Was already, but like adding a whole nother element.
Yeah, times 10.
Wow, to go through that together as a yoga community, that's really cool.
It was, and we were really lucky. I mean, we had teachers that came from everywhere still during that time to come teach us every morning. Because we almost had a different teacher literally almost every morning. We had like 2 that were regular every week, but then we'd have like guest teachers every morning. And literally Bikram taught us almost every single night for our late class, which was unusual because he was always like away. So we had him because of 9/11, and he taught every evening class, which, you know, Bikram class every day for 9 weeks is hard. He's hard.
Is he?
Oh my God.
Tell me.
Triangle. We were doing triangle. And he would stop and, and just start talking, and you're like, oh my God, stop, right? But all of a sudden he goes, is that a triangle? And I was like, who he's talking to? And we're all in triangle, and he's like, is that a triangle? And I can't do his accent, but whatever. And he's yelling, and all of a sudden he jumps off his podium and starts walking towards me, and I'm like, oh my God, why is he walking towards me? So first of all, I'm 5'10", Bikram's probably 5'2". He's a little guy. And he takes his foot and he jams it in my hip and said, sit down, stretch up, sit down, stretch up. And I was like, hold it. I mean, I'm literally dying. I'm literally dying. And he walks back up to the podium, turns around, and he goes, that is a triangle. And I was like, can we come out of it already? Like, the whole class is being punished because of my triangle. Are you kidding me? So anyway, so that was, it was great.
I love it.
It was great.
Oh, man. What's he like? What was that time like?
You know what? He was great. We know all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But my training was...
This is before all of that.
Before all that, right? And he just lectured forever. But we also were not that class who had to stay up all night long and watch Bollywood and all that kind of stuff. We didn't do that. He said intentionally the first day, you will go home every night by 11:30. He said, you guys need rest. And I don't know, maybe that was because of 9/11. I'm thinking about that right this second, and maybe it was because there was so much stress involved or in the world. But we went home every night by 11:30.
Wow, that's still a long day.
It is a long day.
When did y'all start?
We had to be there. First class, I think, was I want to say it's at 9. I really can't remember. It may have been 8, but I think it might have been 9. But then you were there. That room was so gross and smelled so bad, and we did everything in that room. There was people flossing their teeth, brushing their teeth, doing crazy stuff. It was awful. That part was really gross. But other than that, and the stinky room was really bad. It was really bad. Thank God, you guys, we have wood floors. It's a whole different world.
A whole different world. Oh, because everybody had
that was the
carpets,
law. The law.
Right?
Yeah.
Carpet. Why was that the law?
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
You had this experience, this amazing teacher training experience, and you come back and you start teaching?
I came back. No. I didn't. She didn't want everybody teaching for her at that point.
So was there any place else around to teach?
No, because that was the only Bikram studio.
So she would go to training, but you can't teach her?
It was a very interesting situation. So moving along for that, I went to Tulsa.
Oh, you moved?
I moved and went to Tulsa, and there was a studio there, and the guy, Greg, was amazing. And he said, you can do because we had to do an internship for, I think it was it's been so long, but I really can't remember how long, if it was hours or if it was months. But I was there for the entire, probably 3 or 4 months and taught all of his classes.
All of them?
Yes, I taught all of his classes.
Which was how many?
Not that many.
Okay, 2 a day?
Probably 3 a day.
Okay.
Probably 3 a day. And then I would go home on Sundays to see my boyfriend, and then go back Sunday night, or would I come back Saturday night, whatever, go back Sunday. And I did that for a few months. And then during that time, I was looking for space in Dallas because I wanted to open a studio. So that was also hard.
Cool. So you had to do this internship, and you were apart from your partner for free.
For free.
So it must have been a deliberate 3 months, because if you knew you were gonna, and you were already making plans, you must have just done it what was needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
no more than that.
3-4 months?
I'm thinking it was 3 months, and it was for free. You were doing your service.
Wow, that's so kind.
It's so nice of me, right?
And gave you a lot of experience, I'm sure. What were those first months like teaching? What was it like teaching your first class?
I remember driving up there, and I had my dialogue on my steering wheel and driving and reading to Oklahoma, and scared out of my mind. Because you never teach a class at training, right? You just practice dialogue, you practice the yoga, you learn yoga stuff, but you don't ever teach. So your first time on the podium or whatever it is at that studio is the first time you're doing right side, left side for 90 minutes. Because back then there wasn't 60-minute classes. Mm-hmm. There was only 90. And it was pretty darn scary. I forgot rabbit my first class, and the guy's like, rabbit's next. I was like, I know, I just forgot. But then it was, once you do it, I think, I was never afraid of teaching. I was afraid of making a mistake, which that's okay. Making mistakes is fine. But that was my biggest fear, because I wanted to be perfect in the dialogue. That was really important. And then there became a point where there became kind of a trend, I'm going to call it a trend, that people were getting away from the dialogue. and doing saying what they wanted to say in their own words, because I guess people were thinking, it's getting boring. The dialogue's boring. I'm tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. I think that's what teachers were thinking. Mm-hmm. So people just start changing the words, not changing the yoga, but mm-hmm. changing how they presented the words. Mm-hmm. So I did that really well. I changed in my studio. I mean, I did not do 100% dialogue, and but I learned after that the dialogue is really the only way, because it tells you how to do, when to do, step by step. There's no confusion. There's no extra, and it works. The dialogue works. I mean, it really, really works.
Mm-hmm. So you had a season where you veered away, and then you came back to it.
I came back to it after I closed my studio. So I opened my studio, did my thing.
Okay, wait. Okay.
Let me go back there.
Yes. Okay. First off, you were coming back from Oklahoma, and this time to visit your boyfriend, now partner, which this is a great story that we need to just segment real quick. Your husband now, who was your boyfriend then, you guys were best friends in high school.
College.
In Oklahoma. Okay.
In Oklahoma. Yeah, we were. We met my sophomore year, his freshman year. He played football, and I was a football fan, whatever. And yeah, we met. We did everything together. We were best friends, and we, for those years there, we were together all the time. Then we went our own ways,
but just a friendship in college. Yeah, maybe there was more. Maybe
there wasn't.
Maybe there was. Maybe there wasn't.
Yeah, but then we went our own ways. I went to TV. He went and did his thing, and then we got back together right before I went to training. Like literally, we got back together in May of 2001. I went to training in September, and then that was it. When we got married, like when I got back, basically.
Wow. So he's seen this whole thing with you.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
There was a time, like when we were looking for the space, because you had to get a blessing from Bikram back then, right? That he would bless your space and all this stuff, and I was like, bless. And Chris is like, bless your space, like that. What are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. Just gotta do it.
So we need a blessing.
A blessing. So. He was in India, so there was no blessing happening, right? And when you're working with realtors, you got to do things. They're like, I'm waiting for a blessing. They're like, what? Like a nut. So finally, I was like, I blessed the studio. It's gonna be fine. And so, anyway, we opened the studio downtown Dallas, right in the heart of the Arts District. Now.
Where was it? What?
So I don't know, like right where the Meyerson is, like right across the street from there, like where right in the heart of the Arts District.
Wow.
I was a really forward thinker. That probably was not a great location, honestly. I thought it would be, because there was a trend of everybody moving downtown at that point, but there was no grocery stores. There was a lot of things that needed to be in a central business district that were not there to make it a viable place to live, right? So people would come downtown to work, but then they would go back home. So I had tons of students who did the mornings, because they would come, and I had a great facility. I mean, I had huge bathrooms and lots of showers, and it was 4,000 square feet. It was huge. And, but in the evenings, people were leaving. So my evening classes were not very big, and it was a real struggle to keep it open. And we did it. We did it for almost 7 years.
Wow.
And, but it was a struggle the whole time. And that's also back then, there was a big copper theft thing going on. Like people were stealing copper from air conditioning and heating units, or maybe just air conditioning units. And you pull the copper, and what would happen, at my studio, they would pull the copper and it floods the studio. I don't know how that works, but every single time they would steal copper, I would have a flood. We closed like 5 or 6 times to have to, dry out the studio. It was a mess, and it was hard. It was really hard. I loved it, And if I could have been like a donation studio and been rich and just had everybody just come in and do free yoga, it would have been my ideal situation. I mean, that's like, I would love that, but you know, I didn't win the lottery and et cetera, et cetera. So we closed in 2008.
So how many years of service?
From the beginning?
Well, just your studio.
About 7 years.
Wonderful.
About 7 years.
It's a lot of service, and
Yeah.
you taught a lot of classes.
My first year, I taught every single class. There was no teachers. I mean, there were no teachers anywhere.
So every single class means 3 classes a day-ish?
I did 6 a.m., 9:30, 4:30, 6:30.
Wow.
And then I added a noon.
Wow.
Every other day.
Wow, that's
And
a
in the
lot.
weekends.
So that would be 5.
Yeah.
5 classes.
Yeah.
Every other day.
Yeah, it was
then
hard.
4.
But you do it, right?
Yeah, you do
just
it.
do it.
But you don't remember it because you're like, I don't know what just happened all those years. I just sweated my
Yeah.
brains out.
Isn't that funny?
Yes.
Yeah, I did it. I mean,
I cannot believe that though. 5. So was it very hot and humid in there?
Yes, it was hot and humid.
You had everything right.
Yeah, we had everything right, and it is funny. I mean, I think that, when people started coming back from teacher training, I was like, do you want to work for me? I was like, that'd be really great. Would you please work for me?
Please work for me.
So yeah, so we finally got a staff of about 5 or 6, and then I pulled back, and I still did the mornings, because that was like my favorite thing, was to do the mornings. And yeah, it was good. It was, people, I still have a few students here who were downtown students.
Really?
Yeah.
That must be special.
Yeah, Chris Seekin was one of my first students, and even Samantha Duggar came, even though she was here, but she would come downtown because she worked downtown. And so tons of people that I know, obviously they came here because there was nowhere else to go, right?
Yeah.
So it was just the 2 studios.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good. It was good times.
Oh
It was
my
fun.
gosh.
It was at a really good vibe. It was a really, really safe, fun place to be. People came and they stayed. Like, they would hang out in my lobby.
Oh.
Or they would come down their lunch breaks. I never left. I was there 24/7.
What was it like teaching it there at the forefront of kind of the movement? Yeah, because that's one thing I want our viewers to understand. Like, we are talking about kind of a historical movement that happened with original hot yoga, with Bikram. We're not necessarily like worshiping a name. We're talking about a movement that absolutely happened.
Yeah.
That is undeniable. So that's what I want to kind of convey. It's not we're like worshiping some kind of name. We're talking about something historical that happened. There was not a lot of yoga studios at the time, and this was kind of like the first injection of like it being injected into our culture, and people being like, what? So seeing how yoga has taken over the U.S. and like kind of become its own beast. What do you have to say about the shift of like how you were introduced to it, and the evolution of the yoga culture in America since its inception at the beginning when you were there?
Well, I believe this yoga that we teach here is the true yoga, right? It's from India. It's not watered down. It is, the lineage is there. It's legit, right? I think a lot of things have just become so Americanized and so watered down, yoga light. And that's why I appreciate what we do here, because we've kept it real. We haven't changed anything. The only thing we've really changed is, for convenience, is the hour, right? And I think that was something that needed to be done because people need to come when they can come. And if they can't do 90 minutes, they can do the hour, but they're still getting the same class, just shortened, right? I don't know. It's funny when people say, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a yoga teacher. And they're like, oh, downward dog. And I'm like,
no,
not so much.
Not at all.
But I just smile and say, come try. I do something a little bit different, a hot yoga. Oh, I know what hot yoga. I do hot yoga all the time. I was like, well, come try ours, and just, I would never talk down about any other kind of yoga because it all has its place. For everybody is different. But I think if you really want the health benefits, if you really want the fitness benefit, if you really want the mind benefit, this is where you should be. It's where you should be. I mean, just the fact, like when I said earlier, when I first took the first class, I wasn't doing anything right. But just being in that room, in that hot room, and the quiet, and moving your body mindfully, the mindfulness of it is huge, right? And I think a lot of yoga is just powering through and just doing it and da-da-da-da. And this is people can do that in there too. Don't get me wrong. They can. But if they're being mindful, they're going to do it the right way and take their time. The rushing, not being mindful and wanting to go to what they believe is the full expression of the posture when it's not even doing it the right way. Go slow, be mindful, take your time. If you can't do one thing, don't worry about doing the next thing. Start with the one thing. Start with the one thing and just do that right. Mm-hmm. And everything builds really quickly if you're doing it correctly. Mm-hmm. You don't have to master standing head to knee your first class. No need to do that. Why? Do it mindfully and do it right. Take your time.
It's interesting how, at the beginning of yoga asana in our country, it's like, we get Bikram first, we get bits of Ashtanga first, and these are really confrontational practices. Mm-hmm. And yoga in our culture has shifted quite a bit to, I love that there's so many different ways to embrace yoga, but it's just interesting how confrontational these styles are. They're difficult. Yeah. They're beginner, like Bikram yoga is beginner friendly,
yoga, right?
But it does not mean it is easy.
No,
but it's beginner, but it's easy. So I just think that's unique about the Bikram yoga class. Yeah, beginner friendly, please come. This is very hard.
Yeah, it's going to kick your butt.
Compared to anything, any other beginner class is not going to be as confrontational for a beginner. It's going to be more palatable, I think, and a little more.
Yeah.
I just think that's pretty unique, and probably one thing that has shifted in our culture, or at least how we're adapting to kind of make it palatable for everybody. But that's the one difference. Yes, this is a beginner class. It is for every single body. But it ain't easy.
No. And it never gets easy.
It never gets easy, actually, yeah.
I had a student say to me this morning, he was walking out and he was pouring sweat. He goes, "Did you tell me it was going to get easier?" I said, "No, I never said that." And he said, "Okay, because it's not." And I said, and I think that's why people keep coming back. People will often say, "It's so boring." It has to be boring. It's the same thing every single time. The same dialogue, same, same sequence every single time, right? It's boring. It's never boring. Ever. It's new every single day. Because you are different every single day. What you did the night before, every single day is different in your life.
Is you physically fighting for your life boring? Well, no. Panting for breath, boring?
No.
You bored? Do you need to be entertained? Some music. I love it. But what's so cool to me also is learning that you veered away from dialogue and came back to it. And you are a dialogue-based Bikram teacher.
I am.
You are the OG, the mother.
Isn't that funny?
I love it, but just to learn that you veered away from it and came back to it is inspiring to me.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
To come back to it after you veered away?
So I had to get the dialogue back out. And literally, I think my son was in second grade. He was reading, but not reading like that, right? And I would say the dialogue to him. I would write the dialogue, but it was learning over every single thing. Now, I will say I probably have veered again a little bit. I've probably left some things out, and I'll take responsibility for it because it's probably because of the hour class, right? That I've taken things out that I probably don't put back in the 90. But I would say my dialogue is pretty 90% on target, I think.
It's always the same, I'll tell you that. It's consistent.
And
I think that's why, I mean, a lot of our viewers that are listening to this will be your cult followers, I'm sure. The 6 a.m.s, the 6 a.m. Atina holds space every morning, basically, at Pure Yoga Dallas, and has for years and years and years, and has a cult following. If I show up to teach that class because, like, Atina's at the beach, people are like automatically rolling their eyes, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll just, truly. People love Atina, and it's because of her consistency. She is like the cornerstone. She's been doing this for so long, and you know, to hear this about her dialogue. There's one reason why all of these people lean into you and how you hold space and how you guide that class, because they know what they're going to get.
They do. They
do not want to be surprised. They want
and is that good
dialogue.
Or not?
I don't know, but it's the Bikram practice. It's in creating an environment for everybody to use this practice.
Yeah.
I think, but that's why they want you. They want your energy, because it's the same. It's this consistent. It's strong. It's grounded, and they know you're gonna do the same thing.
Yeah,
they rely on that.
Yeah. I truly love those people.
They love you.
But I love them just as much. I mean, like, it's really a family in the morning. I mean, because people who work out in the morning are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, that's when they do it. They get it done. And then they start their day. So for really, as long as I've been here, it's been majority, I would say at least 70% of the same people. And we've all aged together, right? We're all about the same demographic, I would say, in the morning. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I think we're all about, with 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a demographic or not, but whatever, you know what I'm saying. But it's like we're all about the same age. We all have like come from different,
younger, about around 10 year span.
Yeah,
probably,
I think so. Yeah, and we know each other. I mean, we know. I mean, they know me. I know them. I know their families, and I know their vacations. I know everything, and they share it with me. I mean, and I love that. I do love it. I mean, I really do. I mean, I like that I'm a part of their lives and that they're a part of mine.
So you've seen a lot of people, because you've been teaching forever.
Yeah.
You've watched people age through the practice. What's that like?
They're aging in reverse. They don't age. They're reversing their age. They totally are. I mean, I've got, 60s. I think probably the average age of my class is probably 55. I'm guessing. I don't think any of them look like their age. I mean, I think they're strong, they're focused, they are zoned in. When they're in that class, they are zoned in. It becomes, this yoga becomes very meditative, right? If people do what you are saying, when you say to do it, it becomes a meditation. It's a moving meditation, correct? And so that's part of the consistency of the dialogue. If you hear the same thing, you can get into the zone and do your yoga, and just, this one teacher used to always say, let me drive the bus, you just ride along, right? And that is truly what happens if you can get to that point. It takes a long time to get to that point. And there are days you can't do that because you've got excess noise in your head. But I find in this class or in the morning class, they can do that. And maybe it's because they're tired. You're just coming in straight from work, right? Or straight from work, but straight from
bed.
From bed.
Yeah. That's like the time you're supposed to practice traditionally, that early morning when you're just like.
Yeah. So I taught yesterday something I never do, 4 p.m., 5:30. And all day long I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out what time I got to be at work. And nothing is working because normally I wake up and just go to work. So I'm like, my whole day was kind of shifted in this weird way. And I was like, and I used to be a nighttime person. That's when I practiced. It was night. I was a 4:30 after, 4:30, 6:30 after work. And it like clicked with me, like why I like that so much. Because you just come in, there's nothing else that's happened. You're just coming in and doing yoga. You don't have any baggage unless you brought it with you to bed or whatever. But typically you just wake up and brush your teeth, put on your clothes, wash your face, and go to yoga.
It is a different vibe teaching that early morning class compared to at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah.
It's a totally different vibe.
Yeah. It's a totally different
They're
vibe.
both wonderful, but
Absolutely.
totally different.
Absolutely.
The energy is totally different.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's a lot more energy coming in at 5:30, I think.
30 p.m. or a.m.?
p.m.
p.m. Okay, more energy coming in, I bet.
That's what I felt.
But I feel like, everybody gets wrung out in there no matter what.
Yeah,
But man,
for
that
sure.
early morning is so nice. I mean, I think I just personally love if I can get my ass to that class. It is the best time to practice because you got the whole day to reap the benefits of what you just did. And what's beautiful about, I don't think a lot of studios have a religious cult following of their 6 a.m. class. No, people do, definitely do. A lot of studios do. But we have a big one. There's like 30 people.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, some 30, 40 on big day,
Yeah.
I'd say it ranges,
It's
25
never less
might be
than,
the median.
Yeah,
medium.
I would agree.
But yeah, quite a few. Is there anything you want to say? How has your evolution of personal practice been?
I mean, I love the yoga so much. I think being a teacher is really difficult. It's so hard for me to become the student. Yeah, that's what it is. It's hard for me to become the student.
Why do you think?
I want to do a practice that is just my practice.
Yeah.
Like I can practice at home.
Yeah.
I practice in my backyard.
Yeah.
But it is so difficult for me. What happened was with the previous owners is that we had to practice in the front row. And so there was never
I remember
a time
that being influenced, and don't take postures off. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if I'm dying, so
Yeah.
I'm showing students, just ignore your body, it's fine.
Yeah. So it was like it became this it became so rigid
Yeah.
and not fun.
Yeah.
And it became a job.
Yeah. To practice. Because I've got to withhold this role. And
Well, it was
be this
required.
example. Yeah.
It was required. And it was like, so I couldn't enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was really, really devastating.
Oh, because you love it, of
Yeah,
course. That's
and
what
it's
led
devastating.
you. Yeah.
It was really like, ugh. Because if you were having a rough day, you couldn't have a rough day.
Yeah.
You
couldn't
couldn't
be human.
You couldn't be human.
Yeah. Which I think with teachers is where we go wrong as yoga teachers.
What do you mean?
I have learned so much more from teachers that share their humanity with me versus have to. It's good to have boundaries as a teacher, but with those boundaries, I would just put teachers on straight up pedestals thinking that they're perfect.
Absolutely.
And that is, it's kind of like that guru mentality, and that in our culture almost always goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I think it's so important for teachers to, be human.
Right.
And, there's boundaries that are needed in any kind of work environment, but to share, at least expose somewhat, hey, I don't belong on, this is a pedestal of a podium, but
right. And I stepped off the pedestal after we had to after COVID. Do you remember that? When did you start working here?
Right before the shutdown. Oh, so you were on the podium. Now you don't shoot. No.
Yeah. So after we had to go down off the floor, off the podium because of spraying or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know what. I feel like we were closer on the floor, but whatever. But I never went back up because I feel closer to them down there. It's weird. It's weird. I don't know why, because then when I got back up on the the podium, it didn't feel right to me. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. It's cool though. I like the podium, but I can see.
The podium's safe.
Right.
The podium
is safe. And you can actually see everybody. It's a big room.
You can see everybody. I don't know. David used to make us stand up there in the Superman pose and teach like this. There's so many weird things.
Tell me the weird things.
I just remember we do have like posture clinics. He's like, stand in the Superman pose. And we would like stand up there and we would teach like a posture like this, you know? And it would give you power.
It does.
It
we
gives
do
you
that.
power.
We show that in training, you know,
Yeah.
hands on hips. It
Yeah.
does. You do as I say, believe me. I'm credible.
I am the guru.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your practice,
Okay.
how it's evolved since you started, and like then you've taught so much. How has that affected your practice? And
So practicing, when I had my own studio, I would go in because I was teaching my own. I was teaching every single class, so I would practice between classes. I would actually have a girlfriend would come down. She actually became a teacher too, and we would just do a silent class together. And that was how I would be able to practice. And I had it every Friday night, because no one had a Friday night class in all of the world. There was no Friday 6:30. And so I had it, and it was a silent class. So I had a really big Friday night class that I led a silent for years. And that was a really cool class, because that gave me a chance to practice, and it was silent, and everyone could do their own thing, and it was great. As time went on, I taught at a lot of different studios. I taught for Stacy in Grapevine. I taught in Fort Worth, 2 years for Stacy and 3 years in Fort Worth, and then I came back to Dallas. When I was there, I would just stay and practice, right? Here, same thing. Practicing is different as a teacher, though. It's really, for me, I'm only going to talk about it for me because it's my experience. We used to have to practice in the front row, which wouldn't allow you just to be a student. And if I am taking class, I really want to be a student. I want to be able to separate these students of thinking of me as the teacher, right? I want that to be separate, and that's difficult to do. So I do a lot of home practice, lots of home practice, in my yard if it's nice, in my house if it's not. And I do a lot of Inferno here. But I do my personal practice. I have kids. I've got lots of stuff going on. Not that everybody doesn't either, but they don't too. But I'm scheduled so heavily with everything that I got to get it in when I can get it in. And to come in here, and not that anybody would ever judge me or anything like that, it's the pressure I put on myself, that I just want to be a student. And I think students would appreciate that.
absolutely,
Right?
yes, because you just want to be, and if you have a hard time getting in that headspace, that makes total sense. That you would want to only practice in a place where you can be Atina the student and not have any kind of outside eyes,
right?
Perceiving you, and judging every movement, like, you should be this way, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think any teacher that has taught a really long time, or has a lot of experience teaching, says something to that. I know Jeff says, gives that advice, when anybody wants to go to teacher training, he's like, by the way, it'll never be the same.
It will never be the same.
Yeah, and
it's different. It shifts. There is a shift from student to teacher, and then going back from being the teacher to the student. Right.
David Swinson even says it's so difficult to practice, to get that practice in, as a teacher, when you're holding space every day for others, it can be quite a challenge.
I do have one thing that benefits myself, is I do a lot of kid yoga, and I teach at a school, and I teach there during the school year. I teach there just once a week, but I literally do yoga with little itty bitty people, and that practice for me is really, really endearing, and I love it so much. And like this summer, I'm teaching at 3 different camps, so I'm there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with kids from 3 years old to 15 years old. And to put yoga into little minds at such a young age, like I did a meditation with these kids yesterday, and they were 9 to 13, and they were like, what are we going to do? And I said, because they don't know me yet, right? And they're like, all like, we're not doing yoga. And I'm like, we are. I said, but I was explaining the different things that yoga can be. I said, but today I think what you guys need is just to be still, because you've been running around doing all this stuff at camp. It's not camp, it is camp. And I said, but right now we're going to be still. For 20 minutes, I did a meditation with them. I've never seen so many relaxed children in my entire life.
Wow.
It was like a tearjerker. Like I was like, this is the best thing ever.
Oh, to watch them turn off.
Or
try
off.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is unheard of.
Yeah,
so
I had
hard
three
to
of them
even picture.
Yeah, 3 of them fell asleep. And I was like, and I say, I'll touch your toe if you were perfectly still, during the meditation. And then there was just one kid that I said, you can try again next week. I said, try again next week. And he was really disappointed. I was like, you did great. I said, but you weren't perfectly still. That was a challenge. But next week you can try again. Always you can try again. And that's with yoga. You can always try again. We're open every day.
Yeah.
You can come and try again.
Yeah, always tomorrow. I always want to practice in a way that makes it available for me to come back tomorrow. Yeah, I just don't want to burn myself out so I can't come back tomorrow.
Right.
It's the whole point, to make it consistent. So one thing also before we complete our time together is I want to hear about, I know having a family, it's like everybody kind of has to be in your corner to do this work. Like,
yes.
You have to have the support of your whole family. That means your husband must be a huge support to you.
He is
in order to
best.
Continue to serve this way. And then your kids, oh my
they're
gosh,
great.
Mackie and Samira, right?
Yeah.
How has having a family, shifted your practice as a yoga teacher, a yoga practitioner?
It's funny because we talk about yoga all the time at my house. Like the kids talk about it to their friends. They talk about, it's always surprises me when they do talk about it. Like, my mom's a yoga teacher and you should really go take yoga. And if you're doing sports, you should do this, So it's we had kind of a cult in our family as well. But
you guys are all very physical because your husband,
everyone's,
right. He
teaches, he's a PE teacher, but he is a football coach.
High school football coach.
High school football coach.
At your kid's high school, right?
Well, my kid, he played football for him, but he went to a different school, but played football for him.
Okay, cool.
And then Samira does volleyball and swims. They both swim. But so Chris, my husband, has been such a support because, we've supported each other. And like it has worked out in the most perfect way because I want to do the mornings and football's at night. So since the kids were itty bitty, he would always get them up for school, get them ready for school, and then I would take them to school. He would go to work, and then I would pick them. And I do this a lot. One of the reasons I love the morning is because I can be with my family and do stuff with my family and be a part of them growing up, right? And like being able to be at the games and be the carpool mom or whatever. I can do it all. I mean, maybe not well, but I can do a lot of it.
Half asleep, you can do it.
It's on autopilot. So Chris has been a great support in that because he's been able to take those reins in the morning and I can do them at night. And the kids, now that they're older, they can do whatever. They can get themselves around and stuff like that. So they've always been so supportive and they get it. I mean, they both started doing yoga when they were itty bitty. Like Mackie started when he was 4, Samira started when she was 4. And I would bring them to wherever I was working, and they would do the class.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
It was so great. And I mean,
what do you think that did for them, like doing this kind of yoga starting
I think they're
so
very
young?
calm people. I think they're grounded.
And mindful of their bodies.
They are very mindful of their body.
athletes.
Yeah, I mean, and when they get injured, they know what they should do. And they've been injured. I think yoga's made them smarter. I have a funny story. Mackie will kill me, but he was playing football for the first time. He was 4, and so they were teaching him down, set, hut, and Mackie went into bow pulling. So they were all down on all 3s, and he went.
Wait, why?
I don't know.
Oh, that's so
I have no
funny.
idea. But it was, and I was like, no, football. We're not at yoga. We're at football. So anyway, just because he had been in yoga, he went to yoga with me. During the summer, he went every morning with me to Fort Worth for the 5:30 a.m. class. He would sleep in the lobby, and then he would go to tennis, and then he would come back and he would do the 9:30 class.
Oh my gosh! Wow. At how old?
4.
Whoa!
4, 5, and 6.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what an upbringing these kids had.
Yeah, it was fun.
Atina, okay, one last thing that I want our viewers to hear from you is why anybody that might be hesitating to start a Bikram practice, no matter how old or whatever size or shape you are, why should they get in there?
Because it will save your life. It will save your life. Literally, it will save your life. Come, try, do your best, no judgments. Every teacher here will love on you and help you. Complete support. This is a safe place, period. Period. It's a safe place. Come and try.
Thank you so much, Atina, for coming and for letting me interview you. It's been an honor to, learn your story. I know so many people are going to love hearing more about you.
Thank you so much.
You hold space for so many people, and your energy is so important. I think everybody has a lot of questions on where you come from because you can hold space in such a powerful way. And people show up for that. Not only because it's a Bikram yoga class, not only because, it's in the morning, because it's you, Atina.
Oh, you're very sweet.
It's a really powerful presence you give, and that it's hard to teach that kind of space holding. Yeah,
thank you. You're so
it's
sweet.
true. It's hard to teach that kind of thing to a yoga teacher, and I've really learned that from you, or tried to. How is she holding space in a way that is different for these people, like is consistent? And they can rely on that for their health and growth. And so I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for all of your years of service.
Thank you.
So many yogis have practiced under your care. Thank you. I think they just think this movement in our city would not be the same without you. So happy to interview you. Yes. Thank you, Atina.
All right, thanks.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to Pure Yoga Talk. We'll see you next time.